After my marriage, my childhood sweetheart and I became known throughout the capital as the most ill-matched couple. He harbored feelings for my younger sister in his heart, while I mocked him at every turn for falling short in all respects. This state of constant conflict persisted until news arrived that my sister had been widowed. When the message reached us, I stood stunned for a long moment, feeling a profound sense of relief wash over me. With a smile, I said to him, "Congratulations, your moment has finally come." Yet Alexander appeared utterly bewildered, then suddenly furious. "Congratulations for what? If you think you can divorce me and run off with another man, you might as well abandon that foolish notion immediately." I looked at him with genuine surprise. "Are you saying you don't wish to divorce me?" But I already had someone else lined up. When news arrived that my sister Sophia had been widowed and was being brought back to the capital by the Hawthorne family, Alexander threw himself into a whirlwind of activity. He busied himself arranging provisions for the Hawthorne household, monitoring the capital's gossip circles, and ensuring that no slanderous words about my sister would take root. He carefully crafted a sympathetic narrative about Sophia's plight. Frail from childhood and unable to bring joy to her parents, cursed by misfortune, betrothed to a sickly man, and now widowed at a tender age, cast out by her husband's family. She was, he proclaimed, a pitiable soul deserving of compassion. He invested tremendous effort in protecting my sister's reputation, attending to every detail with meticulous care. If only he weren't my husband. I might have admired such devotion. While he busied himself with these affairs, I had my maid prepare an inventory of my dowry. The divorce papers were already written, waiting only for his signature, but he never returned home. From the very first day the news arrived, I had spoken to him about divorce. The days of constantly competing over every trivial matter exhausted us both. Yet he refused to agree, erupting in anger like a man suffering from an old ailment, demanding I abandon such thoughts. For 8 consecutive days, he didn't set foot in our residence. News of his activities on Sophia's behalf trickled back to the estate. The capital was already buzzing with talk that young General Alexander and Miss Sophia Hawthorne had been reunited by fate, while the elder Miss Hawthorne would soon be cast aside. Some scoundrels even joked crudely that the Hawthorne sisters would share one husband, declaring Alexander a fortunate man indeed. Finally, I sent word that if he didn't return, I would burn down the estate. Just past noon, he entered my chambers with a face like winter frost. "Your sister's return will inevitably bring a torrent of gossip and slander. At such a crucial time, your insistence on divorce would destroy her reputation. How could she possibly maintain her standing? Half of that gossip exists precisely because of your behavior. My sister returns home as a widow, yet you, her brother-in-law, show no sense of propriety, running about frantically on her behalf. Who wouldn't grow suspicious? If you and your parents had shown proper concern for Sophia, would I need to make these arrangements for her?" I smiled coldly. "Mother went personally to bring Sophia home. Do you consider that insufficient care? Would you have preferred her brought directly to this estate instead?" Alexander stared in shock, then angrily tore the divorce papers to shreds. "Must you always attribute such malicious motives to me? We've endured 3 years this way. Why must you be so petty now?" I remained perfectly calm, producing another set of divorce papers. "If I don't divorce you, you'll remain my sister's brother-in-law for life, unless, of course, you truly are as shameless as the rumors suggest, hoping to marry both sisters." His expression shifted through several emotions, a flicker of reluctance passing through his eyes before he finally lowered his voice. "Sophia's husband is gone. It will be difficult for her to remarry into a good family. Given our childhood friendship, can we simply watch her grow old alone?" When I remained silent, he stepped closer. "Victoria, your sister is magnanimous. She won't compete with you for anything. When the time comes, I'll bring her into the household as my second wife, and you sisters can live in harmony." Alexander rarely looked at me with such pleading eyes. After 3 years of constant conflict, he was finally humbling himself before me, asking me to step aside for the woman he truly loved. I had my servants pack all my dowry items into carriages bound for another residence in the capital. Alexander demanded, "How will it look for a woman to live alone? What will people think?" I watched the servants load the final carriage. You already know what people think of me, don't you? My reputation had never been sterling. During our 3 years of marriage, Alexander and I were notorious for our discord. He was seen as a romantic figure, faithful to old affections. I was viewed as petty and narrow-minded, a shrew who brought shame upon her family. Men feared marrying women like me, using me as a cautionary example to warn their own wives and daughters against adopting my temperament. Mother apologetically told Alexander that she had failed to properly educate her daughter, that my behavior had caused her to lose face among the noble ladies. Alexander would explain to others that I was actually quite good, that managing household affairs was demanding work. His public defense only made me appear more unreasonable. With others offering sympathy and consolation, Alexander felt he had fulfilled his duties admirably. He was both confused and angry about why I insisted on divorce. I had been a refined young lady from a distinguished family. After marrying him, I became the madwoman whose very name made people recoil. Where had things gone wrong? Alexander looked at me with growing disappointment. "Victoria, how long will you continue this resentment? My feelings for your sister are purely those of old friendship. Now that she is in dire straits, I am simply offering assistance, nothing more. For 3 entire years, since learning of my past affection for your sister, have you shown me a single kind expression? I've told you countless times that the past is behind us, that those feelings have died. You are the one who cannot let go. Now you create another scene, refusing to give your sister any chance at happiness. Don't blame me for taking your words at face value." He spoke with such conviction that had I not seen what was hidden in his study, I might have reflected on whether I was indeed being unreasonably petty. But I had seen those things. Hearing his words, I could only respond with mockery. "What a noble savior of the suffering. Please, by all means, be true to your word." He paused, then laughed bitterly in his anger. "Very well. I'd like to see how well you fare after leaving this family." He snatched the divorce papers and reached for his writing materials. But just before putting brush to paper, his movements suddenly stilled. Alexander looked at me, his eyes cold as winter. "I nearly fell for your trap. If I divorce you now, wouldn't that serve your purposes perfectly? Leaving Sophia to face scandal upon her return to the capital, while you run off with another man. I've long known that someone from the military has been helping you considerably." I had thought myself capable of remaining unmoved by any aspect of his behavior. Yet I found myself laughing in sheer exasperation. Looking at him, 3 years of memories flooding back, I couldn't restrain myself. I raised my hand and struck his cheek sharply. "I have nothing left to say to you." A carriage waited at the gate, and under my guard's protection, I climbed aboard. Alexander, bearing the mark of my slap, kicked the door violently in frustration. The curtains swayed as the estate's nameplate receded into the distance. During our 3-year marriage, I had packed my belongings and left numerous times. Initially, his parents would emerge to intervene, but eventually they grew tired of our disputes and stopped interfering. They had once suggested divorcing me, but Alexander adamantly refused. Eventually, they simply ignored our conflicts, turning their attention to cultivating Alexander's younger brother instead. Tode's departure was the culmination of my long-laid plans. I leaned against the carriage wall, closing my eyes to rest as we swayed along the road. reminiscent of my wedding sedan chair, except that journey had taken me to Alexander's estate. That day had been festive, with many watching, including Sophia Hawthorne, the woman who occupied Alexander's thoughts. It would be difficult to say whose fate was more unfortunate, mine or Sophia's. Perhaps neither of us had been particularly blessed. She had been frail as a child, and a fortune teller declared it was her destiny, requiring 10 years of recovery in the mountains. So, at age 5, she left home for the monastery. Our parents constantly worried about her, wondering if she was suffering in that austere mountain retreat. With me at their side, they often seemed to look through me toward the daughter who was absent. When Sophia came of age, healthy and strong, she was brought home. A young man rode at her side as they returned together, my betrothed since birth. Alexander they had met previously in the mountains, forming a connection during my absence from their lives. Alexander had jumped down from his horse and approached me with teasing words. "Your sister looks nothing like you. She is like a bronze statue, while you are like a porcelain doll." At the time, I merely found his words disagreeable, unable to pinpoint exactly what troubled me. Alexander continued corresponding with me and proceeded with our marriage as planned. We even enjoyed a period of happiness after the wedding. But then Sophia's marriage was arranged to a scholar from Greenfield Province. A sickly young man, Alexander flew into a rage that day, demanding to know why my parents had arranged such a match for Sophia. Everyone could see something was amiss, and I finally understood the truth. My husband harbored unusual feelings for my sister. Alexander couldn't prevent the engagement between our families. The night Sophia departed by ship for her distant wedding, Alexander drank until dawn. After he'd fallen into his cups, I asked him directly, "Alexander, what feelings have you been hiding regarding Sophia?" He murmured in response, "I cannot help myself." It was the answer I had expected, yet it still felt like a blade through my heart. I asked him quietly, "Then why didn't you speak up sooner?" In his intoxicated state, completely unguarded, he laid bare his true feelings. I was already betrothed to Victoria. I could not betray her. This life, I must remain without hope regarding Sophia. I felt as though my very soul had been hollowed out, like a wooden puppet. I pressed him further. Was maintaining the engagement meant to avoid betraying Victoria, or because breaking it to marry Sophia would have damaged her reputation? His lips moved slightly, as if he had lost all awareness. I asked again, was continuing the engagement for Sophia's sake or for Victoria's? He seemed not to hear, slowly closing his eyes and murmuring, "Sophia." He fell unconscious, calling Sophia's name throughout the night. I sat beside him, feeling myself die a little more with each passing hour. Our childhood friendship, our innocent affection, I had given my heart to Alexander until that very night. When Alexander awoke with a splitting headache, he instinctively reached to embrace me. I pulled away, but he didn't notice my rejection. After his night of heavy drinking, he had forgotten everything he'd said. That morning, I first mentioned divorce to him. He looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "My dear, have you been drinking as well? What nonsense are you speaking?" I stared at him coldly. His eyes flickered as if recalling something, growing increasingly guilty. Yet he continued to argue. "Is this because I drank last night? Or because I tried to prevent your sister from marrying that invalid? Don't tell me you wanted to see Sophia thrown into such a terrible situation. I misjudged you. I never knew you could be so cold and heartless." He found justification for his actions, as if his interference in Sophia's marriage had been for my benefit. Growing more self-righteous by the moment, his eyes accused me of being unreasonable. Finally, with magnanimous patience, he said, "I admit I've neglected you these past few days. I'll make it up to you in the future, won't I?" I closed my eyes, unable to bear looking at him any longer. The man I had once loved had become completely unrecognizable overnight. Alexander, Sophia married someone she genuinely cared for. His expression turned icy as he immediately contradicted me. Nonsense. How could someone so frail and short-lived possibly attract Sophia? Even if that were somehow true, how could your entire family allow her to marry such a person? In his mind, this marriage was unquestionably our family's fault, no matter the circumstances. I abandoned any thought of arguing further and said simply, "I know you have feelings for Sophia." His eyes immediately filled with panic, followed by explosive anger, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "I think you truly are intoxicated, spouting such madness. Just because you can't bear to see me concerned about Sophia's marriage, you fabricate such slanderous accusations against me. Calm yourself and consider what words are appropriate and what are not." He delivered this cold rebuke and stormed from the room. When he left the estate, I returned to my family home, receiving the expected response. My parents refused to allow a divorce. Divorce so soon after marriage would make both the Hawthorne and Sterling families objects of ridicule. No one wanted to become a laughingstock, so they expected me to swallow this bitter pill. Alexander acted as if he'd never heard me mention divorce, treating me exactly as before. For a time, I numbed myself, trying to cooperate with everyone's expectations, to deceive myself and maintain a facade of peace. When Alexander made deliberate efforts to please me, I responded with cold indifference. Eventually, he could no longer tolerate it. Such pettiness. Sophia would never hold grudges the way you do. Immediately realizing his mistake, he looked at me with awkward embarrassment. Here was a man who had wronged me, who owed me an apology, yet he could self-righteously complain about my holding grudges. I stared at him, and in that moment realized I would never spend my life with this man. I would never share my remaining years with someone who disparaged me when I was hurting. The carriage stopped before my newly purchased residence in the capital. I had been preparing this household for a considerable time. The servants each knew their duties, and everything was perfectly organized. From the moment I resolved to leave Alexander, everything I did was in preparation for life after divorce. I had cultivated loyal servants, purchased properties, established shops. I had transformed what other officials' wives used for social networking and information gathering into the foundation of my own business empire. My dowry had been utilized to its fullest potential. I had built relationships and secured patronage from influential figures for my enterprises. Among the capital's ladies, my reputation was poor. They attended gatherings to expand their networks for their husbands' advancement. I, however, neglected domestic duties, becoming a money-obsessed merchant reeking of commerce. My parents considered me an embarrassment. Alexander's parents had also attempted to correct my behavior. But when I committed to trade, I had already secured a patron powerful enough that none of them could touch me. My father had achieved his position through diligent study and steady progress, but his humble origins remained a weakness. The Sterling family, despite their noble title, had declined with each generation. My patron was someone they dared not cross. They might disapprove and resent me, but they could do nothing about it. Alexander's every action had become meaningless in my eyes. Without our childhood betrothal, I might never have considered him worthy of my attention. He was beneath me. I knew that eventually I would leave him. When I had built sufficient resources, I would create a reason for divorce if none presented itself naturally. How convenient that Sophia's husband had died. Alexander came alive in our stagnant existence, as if injected with new purpose. He busied himself paving the way for Sophia's return. I too found my opportunity, once again proposing divorce. On my first night away from Alexander's estate, I slept soundly, dreamlessly. Alexander made no attempt to find me. To avoid pressure from my parents, I retreated to a temple for solitude, remaining there until the day Sophia arrived in the capital. Alexander appeared at the temple gates, blocking my path. Sophia returns to the capital today. Won't you come to see her? Without me present. Alexander had no legitimate excuse to visit Sophia. I ignored him, heading toward my meditation chamber. He followed, pleading continuously. I know you misunderstand my motives, but after so many years apart, shouldn't you, as her elder sister, welcome Sophia home? You've already made such a spectacle of yourself over her that you are beyond redemption. Must you also be a failure as a sister? I promise you, once Sophia is settled, I'll stop seeing her. There will be no second wife. I'll remain devoted only to you. Isn't that what you want? I paid no attention to his words, though when he spoke that last promise, I couldn't help but laugh derisively. My laughter made him stop in his tracks, turning to look at me. As we walked further apart, he finally called out, "Fine, divorce." Only then did I respond truly. Alexander's eyes were red. "Victoria, why do you hate me so deeply?" I drew the divorce papers from my robe. They're already prepared. I know you carry your personal seal. Simply add your name and stamp. A young monk brought ink and brush. Alexander took the brush but hesitated to write. I waited. He looked up at me, steadied himself, then signed his name. From his robe, he retrieved a small seal and pressed it firmly onto the paper. I reached for the document, but he snatched it back first, his expression full of melancholy. Once we register this with the magistrate, we'll have no connection whatsoever. Victoria, is this truly what you want? I frowned slightly. Don't put on this act of deep devotion. It is truly revolting. Alexander's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile, as if I had broken his heart completely. He closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. Very well, since you are so heartless, don't blame me for being ungrateful. He tucked the divorce papers back into his sleeve, speaking with cold detachment. You may have the divorce papers, but first, you must help me ensure Sophia establishes herself securely in the capital. What a devoted lover indeed. He stood in silent confrontation with me, then suddenly began to explain. When we first met in the mountains, she saved my life. I must repay. My patience was exhausted. I headed for the door, unwilling to hear him reminisce about the past or listen to his justifications. He clearly understood why I wanted a divorce. Yet he continued fabricating excuses. It was nothing but self-deception. After walking a few steps, I noticed Alexander remained where he was. I turned back. Aren't we going to see Sophia at the Hawthorne estate? Alexander's face brightened momentarily, followed by deeper disappointment. You would be willing just to divorce me. I turned and walked away, refusing to watch his theatrical performance any longer. Alexander climbed into my carriage. I didn't prevent him. The carriage descended the mountain and stopped before the Hawthorne estate. The doorman saw me alight and hurried inside to announce my arrival. Alexander extended his hand to help me down, but I ignored it. He quickly caught up, forcibly grasping my arm to create an appearance of intimacy. My parents, seeing this scene, smiled with relief. Come in quickly. Sophia was just asking about her sister. A figure emerged from the main hall, a woman dressed entirely in white, wearing no cosmetics, appearing fragile and pitiable. Alexander gazed at Sophia, transfixed, his eyes full of tenderness and concern. Mother's expression sharpened, and she stepped protectively in front of Sophia. Don't stand here any longer. Let's go inside to talk. Mother took my hand as we entered, whispering urgently, Stop being petulant. Make peace with Alexander immediately and return to his estate. This situation makes people question our family's reputation. I glanced back to see Alexander and Sophia walking together behind us. After their long separation, both remained silent, their gazes meeting briefly before quickly looking away, as if burned by the contact. I wondered if Mother would once again allow her younger daughter to have her way. Since childhood, Mother had felt guilty about Sophia's absence from her side. She desperately wanted to compensate for the 10 lost years. Everything I had, Sophia must have. Everything I lacked, Sophia must receive. She didn't need to learn proper deportment or study feminine virtues, and wasn't even required to address me as her elder sister. This obvious favoritism made Sophia realize her special position in Mother's heart. When I expressed displeasure, Mother would say I had enjoyed a dozen years of family privilege while Sophia suffered in mountain austerity. How difficult could it be to indulge her a little? Mother's dismissal of my feelings taught Sophia that she need not consider me at all. In her first year home, she caused numerous scandals that our family and Alexander repeatedly covered up. At the height of Mother's guilt about Sophia, she had approached me about transferring the marriage arrangement to her, believing Alexander could protect Sophia while other suitable men wouldn't tolerate her temperament. That day I wept until I nearly fainted, crying out in anguish. Was it my fault that Sophia had been frail? Had I caused their mother-daughter separation? Was I responsible for Sophia's misconduct? Finally, Father's heart softened. He had always deferred to his wife in household matters, allowing Mother to handle everything as she saw fit. But after seeing me nearly collapse from grief, he forbade Mother from ever again mentioning such an arrangement. Mother then sought other suitable matches for Sophia. Unexpectedly, after my marriage, Sophia fell for a scholar from Greenfield Province. My parents opposed this match, unwilling to see Sophia marry so far from home and concerned about the scholar's poor health, fearing she would be widowed. But Sophia was determined to marry him, even claiming she was already with child. With no alternative, my parents prepared her dowry and sent her away. This was a family scandal that couldn't be publicized. Alexander never knew the truth. He continued to pity Sophia for being forced into an unfortunate marriage. The gentleman was ardent, but the lady was indifferent. At that time, Sophia was blind to Alexander's feelings, though now the situation seemed different. Sophia glanced at Alexander several times during our gathering. Alexander maintained excessively proper posture, as if carrying a ruler against his back. I ate sunflower seeds, observing their conversation. When discussion turned to Sophia's late husband, Mother dabbed at her eyes while Alexander offered gentle comfort. It was almost comical. My lips curved upward, which someone noticed. Sophia looked at me inquiringly. Sister, what amusing thought has made you smile to yourself? While everyone else appeared sorrowful, my smile was particularly conspicuous. I cleared my throat. I was just thinking how wonderful it is that our family is united in caring for Sophia. Alexander's eyes flickered, his expression stiffening slightly. Sophia smiled bitterly. Yes, everyone treats me so well, but I am too unfortunate to deserve such kindness. 3 years had changed her considerably. Alexander used to call her a bronze statue because of her vibrant, spirited nature, as if wind and rain couldn't touch her innocent essence. Now, after 3 years in a household's depths, her character had become much more subdued. The tenderness in Alexander's eyes nearly overflowed. Sophia wiped tears from her eyes. Truthfully, I truly envy my sister, never having to leave our parents' side as a child, and having such a devoted husband after marriage. While she looked toward Alexander, I interjected unexpectedly. Was your brother-in-law unkind to you? You really should have spoken up. If our parents had known you were suffering, they would never have allowed his family to mistreat you. Victoria. Alexander coldly interrupted before anyone else could respond. Sophia is already heartbroken enough. Why must you speak such cruel, cutting words to blame her? I smiled meaningfully. Our parents haven't spoken, and my sister hasn't said anything yet. You, her brother-in-law, leap forward in passionate defense to criticize me. Sophia suddenly wailed. Please don't argue because of me. Again, sister. You know that your brother-in-law and I have argued about you before. It seems that despite Greenfield Province's distance, You've been remarkably well informed. I wonder what you think about your brother-in-law's devoted attention to you." Her fragile expression froze, and she stared at me in shock. She clearly hadn't expected me to tear off the mask so publicly. I summoned a servant, who brought in a wooden box. I opened it, withdrew a stack of letters, and tossed them skyward. They fluttered down like paper money for the dead. While she never informed our parents of her situation in Greenfield Province, she certainly didn't spare her brother-in-law her complaints. Sister truly understands the proper order of affection, sparing our parents the worry while letting her brother-in-law make trip after trip to champion her cause. Sophia had been pregnant before marriage. Her husband's family disapproved of this daughter-in-law, and her life there was far from the comfort she'd known in the capital. During those 3 years, she and Alexander had exchanged 84 letters, and he had traveled to Greenfield Province 12 times. Alexander went pale. "You searched through my study." Mother picked up one of the letters and opened it, her face immediately changing. "Sophia, what is this?" She clutched her chest, requiring a servant's support to remain standing. I smiled. These show Sophia maintaining her emotional connection with her brother-in-law, even while supposedly enjoying wedded bliss. Father gripped one of the letters tightly, reading it from beginning to end, his face turning white. Shameful creature. Alexander strode forward, protectively shielding the bewildered Sophia behind him. He looked at me with profound disappointment, as if I had failed him completely. Like a hero protecting his lady, he faced my father-in-law. "This is entirely my fault. I seduced Sophia. I couldn't control my feelings. I am willing to marry Sophia as my second wife and care for her for the rest of her life." Sophia nestled against Alexander like a small bird seeking shelter. Father exploded in fury. "No one may marry Sophia except you. What would become of Victoria? How could our family allow both daughters to marry the same man?" Alexander held the trembling Sophia tightly, blurting out, "Victoria's reputation is already what it is. Even if I marry Sophia, people would consider it understandable. Father-in-law, I would never mistreat Sophia." Father, consumed by rage, actually raised his hand to strike Alexander. "Beast," Sophia cried out. "Father, if you harm him, I won't want to live." What a melodrama indeed, I observed like a spectator, speaking quietly but with enough force to silence the scene. Being a second wife would be too insulting for sister. I willingly divorce him, leaving the position free for her. I approached the anguished couple. "Sister, my husband and I have actually already discussed this. The divorce papers are on his person. He has truly gone to great lengths for you. I find myself deeply moved." Sophia's eyes flashed with surprise as she spoke tearfully. "Sister, I never wanted to wrong you." I extended my hand. "We are sisters. Naturally, I want your happiness and am willing to unite lovers. Come, have Alexander give me the divorce papers. We need only register with the magistrate, and Alexander will be yours." Sophia bit her lip, looking at Alexander through tear-filled eyes. "Alexander, I had no idea you cared so deeply." Alexander stared at me with deep disbelief and pain, as if I had shattered his heart. Hearing Sophia's words, he forced a smile. "Sophia, for your reputation's sake, your sister and I cannot yet." Sophia's eyes turned completely red. She didn't grasp Alexander's supposed consideration delay would only create more complications. She couldn't wait. "You still care about sister more, don't you?" She smiled through her tears like rain on pear blossoms, saying with apparent understanding, "I suppose that is only natural." Seeing her tears, Alexander panicked, frantically trying to dry them. "That is not what I meant, Sophia." I added fuel to the fire. "Husband, how many more times do you want to hear me call you that?" Sophia's tears fell one by one. Alexander clenched his jaw, withdrew the divorce papers from his robes, but then seemed frozen in place. Sophia called softly, "Alexander, Dear sister, I'll help you achieve your goals, and you help me achieve mine. Alexander threw the divorce papers at my feet. Take them. I caught the weightless document. With the matter settled, my heart jumped heavily. Only then did I feel truly alive again. Father slammed the table. I won't allow it. Alexander divorcing one sister to marry the other. What will the world think? How can you shame us so? Sophia knelt with a sob, pressing her forehead to the cold floor. Father, I beg you. She wailed pitifully. I am not as capable as sister. Once she had a good reputation, and even though that is gone, she has businesses to support her, while I have only one path left. Her words were heartbreaking. Tears gathered in Mother's eyes. She looked at me, then at the kneeling Sophia, and sighed deeply. Husband, everyone in the capital knows Victoria and her husband are incompatible. Divorce was inevitable. Perhaps we should allow it. The final decision was about to fall. I had no interest in watching the conclusion of this drama, so I left the Hawthorne estate to register the divorce papers with the magistrate. Alexander, prideful as ever and scorning material concerns, received not 1 cent of my business assets. Now free of all burdens, I suddenly discovered that stepping beyond the boundaries of both families revealed a vast, limitless world. The capital buzzed with rumors about our divorce, with various theories circulating. Some said Sophia and Alexander had been secretly involved long before. Others claimed Alexander simply couldn't tolerate my commercial pursuits. Their wedding plans stalled indefinitely. Alexander's parents refused to allow Sophia into the family, furious about his unauthorized divorce and threatening him with severe punishment. None of this concerned me. My shops suffered some impact as expected. Anticipating that some would shun my businesses due to my reputation, I had long since established myself as a silent partner in a web of enterprises spreading throughout the capital. I was someone who thrived on challenges. In my youth, I strove for perfection, so my parents need never worry about me. After marriage, I couldn't tolerate any grain of sand in my eye, couldn't bear Alexander's feelings for my sister. In business, too, I was determined to make my mark. Alexander thought he knew only the few shops he was aware of, driven by some misguided notion. He sent people to purchase numerous items from those establishments. Money delivered to my door was money I'd gladly accept. His actions earned him praise as a devoted husband, with people lauding his faithfulness. This acclaim left Sophia's face cycling through shades of green, white, and black. But she didn't quarrel with Alexander, choosing instead to remain silent and avoid him. This single tactic was enough to capture Alexander's complete attention and devotion. Alexander considered himself noble, trying to satisfy everyone while actually irritating them all. Once, Sophia had been the thorn between Alexander and me. Now I had become the thorn between them. Before leaving the capital, I left them a parting gift. I had been betrothed to Alexander since birth. Once he understood what having a fiancé meant, he had carefully chosen birthday gifts for me each year. We had once planned to spend our lives together. I returned 15 years' worth of birthday presents to the Sterling estate, severing all ties to the past. I wondered if Alexander would feel any nostalgia for the genuine affection he had shown in his youth. I was bound for the frontier. This was my agreement with the patron who had lifted me up. He had paved the way for my business in the capital, introduced me to other influential figures, and helped me establish myself despite opposition from the Sterling family. In return, I owed him half of all my earnings. After a month's journey, I personally delivered cotton clothing and grain supplies to the armored man standing before me. He loomed like a small mountain, imposing and stern. But this was merely surface appearance, designed to intimidate. Seeing me arrive personally, he raised an eyebrow slightly, making the delivery yourself this time. I couldn't help but smile, escaping from misery. A glint of amusement flickered in Jonathan's eyes. Congratulations. During my first year of marriage to Alexander, I had already decided to divorce him. At the time, no one would have agreed, and I needed to secure my future after divorce. The Sterling estate felt like a suffocating swamp living there left me gasping for breath, Alexander's every word compressing the air in my lungs. Remaining longer would have killed me, but I wanted to live. Under the pretense of praying for blessings and children, I spent a month in temple retreat. During this time, I contemplated how to achieve divorce and what would follow. My parents wouldn't help me, and the Sterling family naturally supported Alexander. My only resource was my dowry. While dowries could generate income, possessing wealth without the ability to protect, it would bring deadly danger. I needed a powerful patron, summoning more influential than both the Hawthorne and Sterling families combined. In just 1 month, I systematically considered every high official and nobleman in the capital, repeatedly strategizing how to establish connections with them. When I was at my most desperate, opportunity presented itself. Jonathan had returned to the capital to report on frontier affairs, but was attacked by assassins. He spent considerable time in the capital recovering from wounds that wouldn't heal. The imperial sage sent him to the temple to purify his spirit of killing. It happened to be the same temple where I was staying. Jonathan didn't believe in gods or spirits, but being sent to the temple was the emperor's way of warning him against harboring dangerous ambitions. Jonathan had entered battle at 15, achieving countless victories, and earning the title of Marquis of Wan. Now only 26. His growing influence had begun to worry the emperor. On his 4th night there, fierce winds howled and the temple caught fire, flames spreading instantly. He was the one who rescued me, calmly directing everyone in firefighting and rescue efforts. Investigation revealed that a young novice had fallen asleep while tending the fire, causing the blaze. Jonathan's expression was coldly skeptical, his smile suggesting doubt about this explanation. This incident finally gave me opportunity to speak with him. Knowing of his arrival, I had already retrieved healing salve from my dowry, a miraculous remedy for external injuries. I presented the medicine as thanks for saving my life. When the temple burned down, we were both forced to return to the capital. In the 2nd month, people from the Marquis of Wan's estate approached me, seeking the formula for the healing salve. Such medicine could greatly benefit the military if used for battlefield injuries. What followed was natural progression. I provided the formula, he supported my business ventures, but he demanded an outrageous price. Not only the formula but half my future profits, even though I had achieved nothing yet. I agreed. For 2 years, I had annually donated food, winter clothing, and medical supplies to the frontier under the guise of charity. What began as scattered carts had grown into full merchant caravans. When I first succeeded in business, I discovered I had climbed aboard a pirate ship. The emperor favored scholars over warriors, repeatedly cutting military budgets. Most of my earnings disappeared into the army's financial void. During 2 years of partnership with Jonathan, I spent 1 year cursing him for his shameless money, grabbing while resignedly calculating how to expand my enterprises. I spent 6 months at the frontier, establishing commercial operations there. Letters from the capital kept arriving, informing me that Alexander repeatedly visited my shops, followed by Sophia, then my parents. The shopkeepers and clerks were thoroughly annoyed by their constant interference. I decided to return to the capital briefly. Before departing, I informed Jonathan, who assigned me 2 soldiers, one missing a hand, the other lame, both bearing the aura of deadly combat. Unlike my personally trained guards, these men inspired immediate fear in observers. Knowing Jonathan was providing career transitions for soldiers unfit for battle, I accepted them anyway. As we approached the capital gates, I saw Alexander waiting on horseback. He rode up to meet us, gazing intently at me. "Victoria, it has been so long." I looked at him and blinked. He was wearing the same expression he once reserved for receiving letters from Sophia. The thorn I had planted between them had indeed taken root. I didn't return to the Hawthorne estate, but went directly to my own residence. Alexander followed earnestly beside my carriage, asking where I had spent the past 6 months, whether I had been happy, whether I had encountered any dangers. I answered all Alexander's questions with polite distance. Upon alighting from the carriage, the 2 soldiers flanked me, coldly preventing Alexander from approaching. At my estate's entrance, I addressed Alexander. "Master Alexander, I've only just returned to the capital, and my residence isn't yet properly arranged. I hope you'll forgive me for not inviting you inside." Alexander's face went blank momentarily. Master Alexander." I considered this, then asked, "Should it be, brother-in-law?" Alexander's eyes dimmed as he smiled bitterly. "Victoria, you needn't torment me. I haven't married Sophia." Not only had they not married, they weren't even engaged. "How could this be? Such trials for true lovers," I said, touching my temple. "I've traveled far and I am exhausted. I won't see you out, Master Alexander." I turned to enter while the servants followed me across the threshold. The gates closed with Alexander still standing outside. My housekeeper briefed me on the past 6 months' events. She had nursed me from birth, following me from the Hawthorne estate to the Sterling estate, and finally to independence. Naturally, she harbored resentment toward Alexander. "The night you left, that Sterling man came and waited outside all night like a lost soul. The next day I told him you had left the capital. I heard he rode after you for 3 days before returning dejected. I sat down for tea. What happened next?" The housekeeper's expression showed disdain. Miss Sophia stayed silent for ages. Then just when Master Sterling reached the city gates, she started threatening to become a nun. Naturally, that came to nothing. When the master and mistress couldn't stop her, they summoned Master Sterling again. I heard from a little maid that Miss Sophia swore oaths and expressed regret before Master Sterling, claiming she never meant to separate you from him, that now she was the villain with a guilty conscience. If she had been as firm as I was, Alexander would only have found her irritating, but her submissive approach likely broke Alexander's heart. Naturally, Master Sterling denied everything, saying he had no feelings for you anymore, that the divorce had nothing to do with Miss Sophia. He spent considerable effort consoling her. Then Miss Sophia asked when their wedding could take place. I was curious. "Yes, what about their wedding?" The housekeeper snorted. "When you lived at the Sterling estate, that man blamed you for all obstacles. But with you gone, he discovered barriers between him and Miss Sophia everywhere. Despite their decline and Master Sterling's incompetence, still couldn't accept Miss Sophia as primary wife. Madame Sterling insisted she could only enter as a concubine. But how could your mother accept her daughter becoming a concubine? What a mess," I smiled. "Don't worry. Alexander can handle it. The more difficult the situation, the more he treasures this hard-won affection. 3 years of separation hadn't made him let go, had it? Alexander preferred what he couldn't obtain, but the housekeeper pursed her lips. Miss overestimates him. These past 6 months, the longer it went on, the less frequently Master Sterling visited Miss Sophia. I reflected thoughtfully. I had overestimated Alexander. It had only been 6 months. The next day, my parents sent word demanding I return home, threatening to disown me if I refused. I ignored them and went to check my commercial accounts from the past 6 months. Thinking of having to surrender half to Jonathan at year's end made my heart bleed. After a full day of business, I returned home to find someone waiting at my gates. As I stepped down from the carriage, Sophia approached with an indignant expression. "Sister, after divorcing Alexander, have you abandoned even your family? Must our parents personally invite you home? I am your sister, yet I can't even enter your house. Have you forgotten us now that you've made money? As an official's daughter, why must you be tainted by commerce? She still wore white, looking worse than before. I observed her with some curiosity. 6 months ago, hadn't she learned to restrain her temperament? Why couldn't she maintain the facade now? With you there to show filial piety to our parents, I am quite at ease. Besides, I know you and mother cherish the mother-daughter bond you missed, so with me away on business, you can better enjoy each other's company. Furthermore, without money, I couldn't have divorced and helped you with Alexander. Sophia's eyes flickered as her voice suddenly dropped. Sister, you still blame me, don't you? You blame me for affecting your relationship with Alexander, for my existence causing mother to neglect you. Her eyes reddened pitifully. So you do understand, I said meaningfully. Of course she knew. How could someone so beloved not sense it? Under her expectant gaze, sensing someone behind me, I changed what I had been about to say. But I never blamed sister. Whether regarding mother or Alexander, I've let go of everything. I won't return to compete with you. Don't worry. A strained voice came from behind. Victoria. You have every right to resent. Sophia stared in shock at the newcomer. I am living too well now to bother with resentment, I said, entering my gates. After they closed, an argument erupted outside. You regret it, don't you? You regret divorcing her, don't you? If you regret it, what about me? You threw me into scandal, and now you want to abandon me too. Sophia was nearly hysterical, answered only by Alexander's weary voice. Haven't I done enough for you? If I had known it would come to this. A sharp slap followed. If I had remained an obstacle between them, Alexander would have blamed me for jealous interference. But when everyone became an obstacle, capital gossip, strange looks from friends and family, only then would Alexander question whether his actions were worthwhile. Alexander had always been an indecisive man. His heart constantly wavered, never truly settling on me, never truly settling on Sophia either. His actions satisfied only his self-perceived nobility, allowing him to perform dramatically in his one-man show of tragic romance. He probably still thought he had done well enough, frustrated that no one understood him. On say again, Sophia confronted me at my gates. No longer maintaining her fragile facade, she spoke woodenly. Regardless of what you think, originally I only wanted a secure home. I never intended for you to divorce Alexander. I glanced at her. When did you start considering Alexander as that secure home? Her grip on her handkerchief tightened. After a moment's silence, she whispered, The 3rd month after marriage, I miscarried. My husband was weak. Doctors came constantly. My in-laws disliked me. Sister, I suffered greatly. That is when Alexander sent me a letter through someone, and I frowned. What? Discovering Alexander was unreliable. Now you want my sympathy with these words. Sophia's eyes reddened. Shouldn't you sympathize? I am your sister. Your real sister. I suffered in the mountains from childhood, while you wore silk and gold in the capital, with a well-matched fiancé. I was mocked for being raised in the mountains without proper upbringing. I finally married my beloved, but he was frail. His parents despised me. I lost my child. Sister, wasn't I pitiable? What would it have cost you to yield to me? She poured out her grievances in a torrent, showing signs of obsessive madness. I raised my hand and slapped her face aside. My palm stung. Your mountain education was our parents' and the priest's decision. Lack of proper upbringing was your own choice not to learn. You chose your beloved yourself. Conceiving out of wedlock, who could respect that? Don't tell me how pitiable you are. If you hadn't responded to Alexander's feelings, would I have ignored you? When you calculated using him as your escape route, did you consider that I am your real sister? Tell me, who wronged you? Tears streamed constantly from her eyes, her voice trembling. I just refused to humble myself before you. I laughed derisively. Then maintain that pride. You didn't humble yourself then, so don't come to me now. She stared at me with red eyes. Mother said you are the elder sister, that you should yield to me in everything. Now for one man, you are this heartless. I called for servants to escort her away. Mother told you that. Go find mother. Don't come to me. After this day, mother began arranging new marriage prospects for Sophia. Alexander started visiting me daily again. He returned all the birthday gifts I had previously sent back. I immediately took them to the pawn shop. The letters he sent went straight to the kitchen as kindling. Still he persisted during 3 years of marriage. I had never sensed deep affection from him. After 6 months of divorce, he adopted a new role of tragic lover, enjoying people's discussions of the devoted master Alexander. In reality, most called him a fool, commentary I gladly encouraged. Near year's end, Jonathan returned to the capital for his report. We met at a tavern to settle this year's accounts, working until evening before leaving together. Samoni burst aggressively from a side street, stopped by guards several paces away. Alexander appeared lost. Victoria, so you were with him all along. He smiled bitterly, as if he had expected this. I suspected as much, but kept deceiving myself that you wouldn't abandon me. I lowered my brow. How could this man be so embarrassing in public? Alexander, if your brain is diseased, seek treatment. Don't assume everyone is as corrupt as you, thinking that being saved once creates romantic obligation. Such cheapened life. I glanced at Jonathan, whose eyes sparkled with amusement. Besides, who would want a skinflint? Now we were business partners, and I had to carefully guard against his schemes to steal my money. If I married him, wouldn't my purse be like a bag with huge holes, letting him grab whatever he pleased? Jonathan looked Alexander up and down, chuckling. You married someone like this. I remained expressionless. A childhood betrothal arranged by our parents. I initiated the divorce. I spared no effort to distance myself from Alexander. I feared embarrassment. But Alexander interpreted this as betrayal for another man's sake. For him, you deny our past. I couldn't help but show surprise. What about our past is worth remembering? Look at yourself now. What is worthy of anyone's attention? Alexander himself held only an idle position at court with no achievements, showing no interest in supporting his family, wallowing instead in romantic entanglements. Once his appearance had been notable, but now he was considerably worse for wear. In short, he had no redeeming qualities. Fighting him would waste my time. Alexander's face went ashen. Too impatient to look at him further, Jonathan and I left separately. Before parting, I told Jonathan, that man is as persistent as a plague. He said, give me another 10th of profits and I'll make him disappear. I told Jonathan to disappear himself. Alexander wasn't worth a 10th of my earnings. Today's conversation created no stir in the capital. I visited my parents once, and they wanted me home to discuss remarriage. I left the same day and never returned. Until the day before the Lantern Festival, Mother personally came to bring me home. I initially refused, but Mother stared at me and actually began crying. She seemed to have endured some ordeal. Weeping with exhausted desperation, Victoria, did I do wrong? I only wanted my daughters to be happy. She said Sophia was pregnant with Alexander's child. Whether they were happy I didn't know, but I found the news quite amusing. I accompanied her home, curious to witness this drama. At the family banquet, Alexander once again sat at the hawthorn table. Sophia's matchmaking had gone poorly. Potential suitors were less impressive than during her youth, partly due to her theatrical romance with Alexander. How they had entangled themselves again, I didn't know. With pregnancy involved and Alexander threatening suicide, the Sterling elders finally relented and agreed to let Sophia enter their family. Throughout the meal, Alexander appeared bereaved while others looked equally cheerless. Only Sophia spoke and ate normally. I whispered to Mother, See how happy Sophia is. Mother couldn't smile. She knew that even after marriage, Sophia's future at the Sterling estate was doomed. After the meal, I prepared to leave. Alexander privately intercepted me, his eyes lifeless. Victoria. She is with child. I cannot abandon my responsibility. But how could a maiden use such lowly methods? Victoria, when you said Sophia willingly married that invalid, was it true? I suddenly understood. Sophia had used the same tactic twice for marriage. Sophia is naturally cheerful and unrestrained. Isn't that what you love about her? As her husband, don't be so resentful. Be magnanimous. Your parents will resent her, so only you can protect her. I know you are a responsible man. I suppressed my rising smile. Congratulations, after years of longing, you've finally achieved your heart's desire. She once went to such lengths to marry that other man. Now she is equally devoted to you. Good things come to those who wait. You've both gotten what you wanted. He closed his eyes, sinking into shadow. His drama had reached its final act. Curtain falling, with Sophia pregnant, time was pressing. The wedding was arranged for a month later. At the ceremony, the Sterling parents showed no joy whatsoever. Alexander appeared lost throughout, drinking heavily before entering the bridal chamber. Guests observed with curiosity, whispering about why this family displayed no festive spirit. The Sterling parents' displeasure was understandable given their long opposition to this match. But why did Alexander himself appear so miserable? Some even questioned me about it. I casually replied, "Dreams coming true. Perhaps he hasn't fully awakened yet." Interestingly, 3 days after the wedding, the emperor reassigned Alexander to a provincial post. After his departure, a doorman delivered a letter signed by Alexander. He wrote that he had been reckless in youth, but would now, having experienced life's trials, accomplish real achievements and make me see him anew. With his intelligence, immersed in provincial politics and personal relationships, he would likely be devoured completely. Sophia, needing rest during pregnancy, couldn't accompany him on the arduous journey, remaining in the capital in her carefully chosen refuge. The proper behavior she had never learned at home, she now studied at the Sterling estate. After several days of lessons, she fled home to complain to Mother. But this time, Mother didn't help. Instead, she sent Sophia back for Madame Sterling to continue her education. Observing this, I thought perhaps it was destiny. Sophia separated from her husband. Alexander wed to discord. I arranged all my capital affairs and set out again for the frontier. Leaving the estate and boarding my carriage, as we traveled farther from the city gates, this vast world stretched limitlessly before me.